I've been running very consistently for 5 years, and the first race I actually ran was in sixth grade, which is like 5 or 6 years before I started getting consistent with running. And in that time frame, I have ran three 100-mile races, a sub 3 hour marathon. I did 10 marathons in 10 days and had a running streak of 933 days. So I've invested a lot of time, not just with actual training, but just thinking about running and adjusting things and trying to adapt to certain things, and also dealing with injuries. And so I wanted to talk about the three things that I've learned and continue to think about and really focus on. These are three focus points for me when it comes to running and how to achieve my goals with races or just stay healthy. And the first one, we'll just get into it, is you keep your hard runs hard and your easy runs easy. Now, I need to make more videos on this, or you need to go look up heart rate training for runners or how to train by heart rate zones, because this is what I'm getting at. A lot of people feel like they're running easy because it's not that difficult or it's not a full out sprint, but really their heart rate is in like zone 3, zone 4. And so if you're new to heart rate zone training, I would definitely invest some time looking into what that is, or look up zone 2 training, or why I should train by heart rate zones. I think that stuff that I looked into very early in my running career is something that's helped me a lot with my success. And to summarize it, basically, you have your plan of training runs, and you either go pretty easy or you go pretty hard. Because I guess the way I look at it, and maybe there's other ways to explain this, but the way I look at it is you have your anaerobic training and your aerobic training. You have your endurance or with oxygen, and then you have your like speed work, which is with less oxygen, or low heart rate, high heart rate. And so everyone's heart rate zones are different, but for me, I focus my easy runs in zone 1, zone 2, and my heart rate zone, like my hard runs in zone 4 and zone 5. And so when you think about this like spectrum, if you will, you don't really get a lot of not that you, and here's the funny thing, I guess other people have different opinions on zone 3, but it's kind of basically said that you get maximum training stimulus for certain types of activities or what you're specifically training, because there's so many systems involved with running, but you get the most training when you're in zone 1, zone 2, or zone 4 and zone 5. So zone 3 is kind of ignored. And I haven't looked enough into benefits of zone 3, and it's not like you're not getting better at running when you run in zone 3. It's just more about from my perspective, like the maximum benefit from each workout. And don't get me wrong, there are times where I go and run with friends. I don't pay attention to heart rate, it doesn't matter. But the majority of my runs are by myself. And so when I have my training schedule for the week or over the course of a couple months, I'm looking at when I'm doing zone 2 training and when I'm doing like zone 4 or zone 5, which is the hard runs. And so when you keep it easy, you're recovered enough for when you have to go hard for speed workouts, you can go hard. Like you can go really hard, which is obviously good for pushing your limits and getting faster. And so I think this is one of the best things I've done. And the other part of this is if you're spending, I hear the split should be around like 80% easy, 20% hard runs, or as far as volume, right? So maybe you're not running 100 miles, but if you did in a week, it would be basically 80 of those would be easy, or 20 would be hard. Or really, if you look at the time running, right, like you're running for 10 hours, you'd run 8 of those easy, two hours in a week, like hard and tempo type stuff or anaerobic work. And so when you do that, it's just a good, well-developed training program. And what's also valuable about this is you're going to reduce your injury because you're running easier 80% of the time, but you're still getting endurance and you're still getting base work and you're still getting better as a runner. You're just avoiding injury because you're not running hard. Your heart rate's not 170 beats per minute every time you're running. You're able to, just keep your system chilled out on the easy runs. And when you go hard, you have enough in reserve, or you're recovered enough from your easy runs to be able to go hard. So I think that is just an amazing concept, and I think most new runners don't understand that, and I didn't understand that, right? Like, this is something that I learned over the course of maybe 2 years of getting consistent with running, and then I would have never known this in 8th grade or 6th grade, I guess, when I ran that 100-meter dash race. So that's the first thing, and I think if you just spend a lot of time looking into that, you'll get a lot and you'll stay healthy. Now, I want to move on to the second point, which is strength work is going to help you more than you think. And I don't necessarily even do specific strength work like running workouts. I really like just lifting heavy. I don't look on YouTube for, like running specific workouts. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I love lifting heavy because it feels good. It's good for my confidence. And two, when I'm lifting pretty heavy and lower rep ranges, I am getting strength, especially on my leg day, to be able to endure the ultra running I do. And so another example is not even just with legs, but I just ran a 50K about 3 days ago, and my whole upper body was sore because I carried 2 water bottles for the 6 hour race. And so it was like carrying around, I don't know, 2.5 pound dumbbells, which isn't a lot, but if you think about it, you're doing that for 6 hours, it obviously adds up. And so I'm not trying to be uncomfortable and feel tired in my upper body the whole 6 hours. So it's good that I'm doing upper body type of training. So basically what I do for working out is I just do push-pull legs 3 times a week for the most part. It depends on what kind of training season I'm in or if it's an off season, but when I'm training for races, pretty much if it's a marathon, half marathon, 5K, or an ultra like a 100 miler, I typically do the same thing where I lift 3 times a week, typically like a Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, something like that. And I do push muscles on Monday, so chest, shoulders, triceps, and then I do leg day after my speed workout. So typically I do speed workouts on Tuesday, and so I'll do legs in the afternoon or evening. And then the third day of the week I'm doing pull. So that's like back and buys. And I do core at every single workout too, depends on, it might be planks, it might be hanging leg raises. But the idea is if you're going to be able to, if you want to endure mileage and you want to endure even a 5K if you're new to running, but up to a marathon or a 100-mile race or 200-mile race, you need to be able to endure those things. And so it's simple, but I think a lot of people neglect the fact that if you're running a marathon, you might be taking, I don't know, 60,000 steps. I'm just throwing that number out there, but it's going to be a lot of steps. And so your body needs to be able to endure that. And your legs need to be able to keep pushing and keep driving. But also your upper body, it's moving too. You're swinging your arms, right? Your core is used a ton with running. It's keeping you upright. You're breathing, right? You're twisting. And so your body needs to be able to endure that stuff. And what I've found is the more I spend time in the gym, the less pains I feel during my runs and after my runs too. So I wasn't always a lifter. I didn't always get in the gym, but as I've done more of that and made it a priority, not necessarily that I neglect my running, but I just make time for both, I have seen results and gotten faster and gotten healthier. And I think that's a big part of this, is what I'm trying to say is, like, I would rather someone reduce their volume for running. Like, if they're running 50 miles, but they don't have time, like 50 miles in a week, they don't have time for strength work, I would rather they run 40 miles or 45 or whatever so they have the time for strength work, because it's that valuable and it's kept me safe and it's kept me healthy, and it's also helped reduce the pains I'm feeling in races. Like, during the 50K, I was bound to hurt at some point, but I know because of the strength work I've done, I wasn't going to get injured, or I would reduce the likelihood of getting injured, and I was just going to feel better for longer during the race, which I think is obviously valuable, especially if you're out there for several hours. The third point I want to point out is and this is, I don't think it's necessarily controversial, you just have to hear what I'm saying because definitions matter, or how I'm explaining this is important, is stretching fixes injuries. And what I mean by that is not the tear you get from your tendons, or when you tear a ligament, or you break a bone, or you have a stress fracture. What I'm talking about is injuries, the things we all think that are injuries. And I have several examples for myself. You obviously have to figure things out for yourself and figure out what type of injury it is. But what I'm getting at is, a lot of people say, I have runner's knee, and they take time off, and then they come back a couple months later and they get runner's knee again. And it's like, there's obviously some reason why that keeps coming up. It could be a lack of strength. Maybe it's bad form. But I've found for me, when I feel like I have runner's knee, which is something you're supposed to stop running and like take time off to heal, when I have that type of pain that I think is runner's knee, or what people describe as runner's knee, a lot of times it's my quad being way too tight. And it only makes sense. I'm also a certified yoga teacher, so I kind of have more perspective on this than maybe a lot of other people do. But if your quad is incredibly tight, of course it's pulling on your knee. Like, that only makes sense. It's the same thing as like your back being tight, so you have back pain. Your hamstrings being tight, so you have back pain. And so, or shoulders and pecs are tight, so you have shoulder pain. And our body's so connected. So maybe you don't have runner's knee in the sense of like you have to take 6 months off, but you are not flexible enough or mobile enough, or you're too tight. And I know stretching doesn't work for a lot of people, but when I've had pains, most of the time I spend 2 or 3 sessions throughout the week stretching, and it goes away. I haven't had shin splints for a long time, or when I have shin splints and they come up, I stretch my ankles a little bit more or the bottom of my feet and roll them out, and then I feel better. So I'm not saying like if you broke something or shattered your femur that stretching is going to fix that. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at the things that runners think are injuries or they get scared of. They're like, oh, I feel this pain. Am I overtraining? Do I need to take time off? Some of those things you can just stretch or do strength training, obviously, but we already talked about that. Some of those things you can just stretch and become more mobile, and so you're going to have less of that pain. The very common ones are like quad causing knee pain, ankle being too tight causing shin pain, or hamstrings and hips causing back pain. I think those are all very common things in running, and when you ask a runner, when they bring up an injury, you ask them, like, do they stretch? They say no. And it's like, well, maybe that's the first thing you should look into. And obviously, go get your x-rays, go consult whoever you need to for that. If you need PT, do that. I just have a big core belief that some of these injuries, or not really injuries, you're just too tight. And so these are three common, like, big things that are very common as far as, like, what I'm thinking about, or when I feel pain, I stretch. When I feel weakness, I get in the gym. And overall, when I'm training, I'm looking at keeping things easy when they're easy, so then I can go hard when I need to go hard during speed work. So hopefully you got something out of this video. I hope you found something you can apply to your life, and consider subscribing if you like running content. If not, I still hope you got something out of this. My channel is really about helping people learn from my mistakes, get better, and deepen their relationship with running, because running has quite literally saved my life. So I hope I can say something that helps you with your own personal running journey that you're going through. So I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.